Hey, your meeting's been moved to Zoom. I just got an email from Donna.
Okay.
All right, we're back in session, and this is a discussion on conflict public defense counsel.
Good morning, Commissioner. Shanda Crystal, Purchasing and Economic Analyst. At our last meeting, when we met with John about the Conflict Public Counsel, we reviewed the contract with him. He had some questions. We had some adjustments to make. Legal has made those adjustments to the contract. We got the answers to all of John's questions to him, and he's returned a signed contract back to me this morning for final review and signature by the commissioners. A couple things I just wanted to point out. I did begin that effective today, unless there was other reasons to pick a different day. Okay. And then I just had it run for the remainder of this fiscal year and next. There is that clause in there that, right, either party can get out, but that would line it up with the other contracts of being terminated at the fiscal year point. He is aware, right, that we are looking at doing things differently in the budget. I extended it out just in case. So that was the reasons for those that I made. Unless you have
Any concerns?
No, I'm good.
Legal, you're okay with all this? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move to authorize the contract as presented.
Yeah.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So there is a couple of final house cleaning things as we get John on board. One of that is January payment. With his contract starting today, do we want to do a prorated payment for the remainder of January? Do we want to pay him in full and get cases coming his way? Auditing just needs to know how to proceed forward.
My question would be, what would be his caseload? Would we give him a full load now?
Well, we wouldn't do that. What would happen is whoever holds those cases that are there, he would just be put in the rotation and start picking up cases then.
Then I would say prorated.
Yeah.
Because we have Dan and Stratton are still holding on to their cases, so any new cases be assigned should be going to John, unless we ever wanted to switch.
Yeah. No, I'd say you prorate it right now because the judges are going to have to let them out, and they said they would get to a point. So what I'd say is prorate it, because if they put him on the list today and people in the community behave themselves, he might not get any cases for a little bit, or he might get 15 cases tomorrow night, depending upon how busy the thing is. And it's in there around robin of how they would do it. Because if our public defense doesn't have any conflict cases come up to kick to them, it might be, so just prorate.
Well, in our conversation with Kerry, that I had with Kerry, I told him that it's still in the round robin. It's not the next 70 cases come to him.
Yeah.
I mean, the other attorneys still have to be in the round robin. It isn't all of a sudden they're free for the next month or 2 months because we're not adding more cases.
Company, we're finishing out there,
Yeah.
so it wasn't the big handoff that we had
Right.
previously.
Yes.
So, yeah.
He hasn't done any work for us, right, before?
He hasn't done anything.
He hasn't done anything.
No. So we need to get him set up with all the required documents for pay.
Did,
Okay.
W-9.
Yep.
So we'll do 3/4.
I would just take the,
Well, it's 15 out of 20 days.
yeah,
Working days.
yeah.
I'm assuming working days. Or do you want it month?
Well, public defenders, they work all the time, or are
'Cause
they,
that could
are they on
come
call,
in.
are they 24/7, or are they only during certain days? How are they treated? Does a public defender have to go out and meet with somebody if somebody murders somebody on a Friday night and it's conflicted out, or
They
does it
still
have to
have
wait
to be
till?
able to go meet with their clients, outside of court, or they're supposed to at least.
Just, I'd do it by working days then, probably would probably be the
Because
easiest.
otherwise, we're looking at 21 out of 31. So take your pick.
Yeah, whatever,
Change a little
whatever.
bit.
Prorate it by working days
Okay,
is what it would be.
so 3/4.
Yep,
Okay.
I'm good with that. You good?
So that is all the cleanup I had with Mr. Cummings' contract, unless there were other concerns on his. Okay, so now we do have the two for Stratton and Dan. There were some questions again that were asked of them to have back into you for review. You wanted a list of their open cases, the type of cases, and the status. I have yet to receive that from either of those individuals, though I did have a little information to discuss. Kerry is hoping to join us. He had some stuff today, but he does want to talk about the cases and how they're assigned and things like that. He was able to pull, though we can't differentiate which cases that Bannock County has assigned these attorneys and which ones are their own personal clients. They have other people that they have. Dan seemed to be all of ours. Carrie reported back to me that he had, that Dan Taylor had 37 active cases. Dan did report to me on the phone, he said 39, but, right? He did say that most of those were felonies, 35 of those were felonies. Carrie was also able to report that on an average, a felony case is about 150 days to completion. So I just wanted us to wrap our heads around that we could have these attorneys for the next 5 months as they finish out various tasks. Dan is again on the phone last night, said that he would get us that list by the end of the week. But
So we're gonna pay these individuals hourly. But I've thought a little bit about this, and our ARPA funds, if this backlog was caused partially because of COVID, and they weren't able to be in courts and stuff, I think that is an area that we could look at. I just throwing that out there. It's not an area that I want to go with ARPA funds, but if we can't identify, it's something that we're stuck at right now. It's caused us some problems, and I'm just thinking outside the box of,
So yesterday I did
Where?
listen to a couple of the ARPA,
Yeah, I listened to one.
okay, and it said court backlog.
Yes, it did.
So we could add that to the list. The one thing I have not gotten clarification on, and we could check with IAC on this, is if we pay for it out of the public defense, can we reimburse ourselves? Once we get true and accurate clarification of if this falls.
yeah. Well, I'm just saying that if we got 5 months that we don't know, and we don't know totals, I mean, it's kind of a challenge.
I believe we can do that. That's how I interpreted some of the
Me too.
instructions yesterday.
But we'll have to ask legal, because that's everything I've read. It says ask legal.
Divert.
For the backlog.
I don't know. I'm just trying to think of ways.
But I've got more research I've got to do, and we can work on that.
Yeah, and I know with COVID right now and the numbers going up and down with trials, sometimes we have trials, sometimes we don't. So everything's, at least right now, being pushed off. But we have a trial starting today, too. So hopefully we're going to try to get that backlog finished sooner rather than later, because I know that can lead to extending out these cases and hence us having to pay more than finishing up.
Oh, how else, any other ideas of how we pay this? I mean, you talked about public defense. Have we got money in our grants still? Have we got money? Where would we come up with funds to pay the hourly
Well,
rate?
we have a budgeted line item for these.
Mm-hmm.
We would just take it out of the indigent court-appointed public defenders. Problem is we only have 45,000 in there. So we can just monitor what we've paid out of there, how much we're paying out of there. If we don't have a lot of criminal investigations, we have 15 budgeted in there also. So that would give us $60,000 that we could potentially pay to cover some of this. Another option is we can monitor how much we need of this. If we use it all, I can look at possibly opening the budget within the indigent fund to add to that, which our excess sales tax has been coming in higher just because that's such an unknown. So that might be an option to open the budget and use some of those dollars if the ARPA doesn't work out.
Yeah.
If we get to the point where we're looking, we have major projects that we want for ARPA. There's no doubt about it.
Right.
But if we get to, there's $100,000 here or something,
Well, part of the ARPA, and this, I know this isn't an ARPA discussion, but it plays into this, is you've got the first 10 million that you can use for county operations, but the other 7 million we're going to have to use for specific items. This could fall into that category unless we have other items that will need it for that purpose. So I'll just add this to the ARPA discussion, and then also look and make sure it's going to, I'm with you, I think it will qualify, but we can work with legal and see if it does. But that would give us two backups to cover any monies if we do exceed that $60,000 or $45,000.
But we do have funds identified right now to cover.
Dan was able to submit an example as an invoice. I just barely got that to Christy this morning for review if we need any adjustments or changes to that.
Just a few.
Okay.
He has, for billing period, he has 11/18, just as an example, 11/18 of 21 to current. Give us an end date.
Gotcha.
So like the month of May.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Also, it would be we require a date to know that when he has submitted an invoice date. And then if he could tell us who he's billing, so he doesn't have a bill to Bannock County.
Yeah.
That was about the only thing that really wasn't included that we would need.
Okay.
Oh, invoice number.
Perfect. Okay. And then he did have a question as far as if the commission wanted him to bill by client or monthly. He would prefer monthly, but I said that the board would discuss it.
Well, I think monthly, but that would be part of the deal in there is what case.
Monthly by client.
Okay. He'll have to
Yeah.
list what case number he's working on and, okay.
Yeah.
That's how our other attorneys do it.
I'm not saying that we need the person's name, but the case number.
Yeah.
I mean, if that would keep that identity out of our hands.
But then we also have tracking that you're billing for this case so that we could try to make sure they're not duplicate billing.
Yeah.
Plus that'll help them post it.
You'd want to bill per case, so we can, if there's any issues coming up, we can
Yeah.
see that
Right.
compared to aggregating
Yep.
together.
Yep. Yep. That goes back to the statistics we were talking about the other day with Dave. Helps us gives us some of that.
Yeah.
And there
Under
were,
the new contract, there's a new language that put in the contract. It's spelled out, it needs to be by case.
Yeah.
So it's not, we spent 12 hours this week.
Thinking about something.
I did have an interesting conversation with Twin Falls prosecutor, Grant Lobes. I had an interesting conversation with Grant Lobes in perspective dealing with the Public Defense Commission, and I think that it might not be a bad idea to have maybe some perspective from Twin Falls' prosecuting office and what they're doing in response to that, because Grant takes it as that like the PDC or guidelines and they don't really care and they don't actually follow their caseload standards in hiring attorneys to keep in par with the prosecutor's office. So they basically have said, okay, that's nice that you think that we should have this many and we may or may not take your grant money, and they keep their prosecutors and their public defenders in parity that way. They don't, and that's kind of how their commissioners have approached it. I talked to some of them as well this weekend, and they've basically said, we don't really care what the PDC says on caseload standards, this is what we're doing.
Jason had some conversations with the clerk up there,
Mhm.
Twin Falls clerk, on how they do public defense too, so that might be beneficial for him to catch up with you unless you already have.
Yeah, no, I think there's some discussions that need
Did you?
to some more research that way and that approach, because it was an interesting insight just from somebody that's on the outside and they're looking in and what they look at with PDC and kind of how Bannock County is like the poster county for the PDC, and the other counties are like, no, we're not doing that. So I think that we need to probably start doing some research on those things.
Well, and that's why Bannock County got a lot of money in a grant. That
Yeah. Yeah. So.
when you suck up, sometimes you get the grant. Well, I don't know.
so I have a couple other questions. As far as the invoice goes, way previous meetings, we had talked about having somebody review them as far as that would know that, to do this item would take about this long. Would we like to do that with these ones, or?
Let's get a few of them
Okay.
so that we have an individual that we've talked a little bit about, a previous judge maybe, that, and I haven't talked to that individual personally, but I don't want just one invoice either
Right.
to
So
Dictate.
currently, because that is budgeted in where it's at, I believe we have the court signing off on that. I need to double check who's signing off on those, but I think it was the courts. So if you're gonna want to change that, I just need you to let me know.
I don't know yet. know
Right,
where
I'm
we're
just,
at.
let me know
Yeah.
when you do, so that I know if I need to change it.
Okay.
Yep.
So is that first, Christie, I was gonna have them submit the invoice directly to you, or do we want it to go to Braden, or?
Depends on who's gonna sign off on it. If it's gonna be, if it's gonna be the commission, then it would make sense to go to Braden. Current practice, they can submit it to us, and then we can get the signature.
And we have John, we did tell him that his point of contact will be Braden.
Well, he'll be put on recurring, and what I'll do now that we have that contract in place, I'll bring the recurring sheets back to you and have you initial off that he is gonna start getting paid, in place of the ones that we took off.
So until we decide, should we have Sawtooth and Stratton submit them to Braden?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Until we have further guidance. Okay. Then my last question that I have, as far as the updated contracts that we'll need, legal has created those for Stratton and for Sawtooth. Were there any other, do we want to sign these? Do we want to wait until we see a list of their cases?
I'd like to see a list of their cases before we.
Okay.
And then I'd like them, just like with John, they sign it first
Bring it to us.
and then bring it back, because, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to sign one and then back and forth, back and forth. If they have questions, they can come in and talk to us, just like John did, and we can have that meeting and go through them.
Yeah.
Well, and I know that both Stratton and Dan should at least be representing their current clients even right now, like as they go through it. So if we get that contract sooner rather than later, we might have to, as long as they submit billing, I'm sure the commission wouldn't have a problem if they submit it and we still pay even though the contract wasn't officially signed right now. They both agreed verbally.
Right.
Well, and our old contract with them still
Yeah.
commits them and us.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely Dan's does. Stratton's a little bit more
Yep. But I.
in the air, but
Well, I say that we're committed, I mean, we've,
yeah. I just want to make you aware of that. So because they're probably actively keeping track right now.
Okay. So I will send these invoices to both of those legal entities and ask them to please review, and if they agree, sign it and return, along with a list of their cases and all of that stuff. Upon receiving that, the commission will move forward and sign as well. Is that-
Okay.
Okay. Okay. All right, that is all of my questions, unless you had any other.
nope. And with that being said, we'll be at recess till 5 PM.